artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, or as known as AI, is intelligence demonstrated by machines as opposed to the natural intelligence displayed by animals, including humans. AI research has been defined as the field of study of intelligent agents, which refer to any system that perceives its environment and takes action that maximizes its chance of achieving its goal. The term artificial intelligence had previously been used to describe machines that mimic and display human cognitive skills that are associated with the human mind, such as learning and problem solving. The end of humanity. What happened when the machine finally take over? And what happened if a robot becomes as intelligent as your spouse? So, there are some robotic revolutions. The first one is the Predator drone. The Predator is a fully operational system consisting of 4 sensors or weapon-equipped aircraft, ground control station, Predator primary satellite link, and spare equipment, along with operations and maintenance crews for deployed 24-hour missions. It is a 27-foot drone that can fire deadly missiles at terrorists from the sky, and it is controlled by a human with a joystick. The truth is, it is a human who is calling the shots, not the predator. So next is a pilotless robot plane. It is an aircraft equipped for operation by radio or by robot control without a human pilot aboard. Next is autonomous car. Autonomous car is a car incorporating vehicular automation that is a ground vehicle that capable of sensing its environment and moving safely with little or no human input, where cars that can drive themselves. For example, a Tesla. As we know, the cars that drive themselves are not making independent decision as they scan the horizon and turn the steering wheel. They are actually following the GPS map stored in their memory. Lastly is Asimo, the world's most advanced robot that can walk, run, climb stairs, dance, and can even serve us a cup of coffee. There are 2 different types of robot, which is remote controlled by a human or programmed and prescripted. This robot already exists and generate headlines. They are largely useless pieces without a decision made by a human. The other type is truly autonomous. This kind of robot, they can think for itself and it requires no input from human. It is this robot that have eluded scientists for the past half century. Let's move on to Asimo the robot, or as known as Advanced Step in Innovative Mobility. Asimo is a humanoid robot created by Honda in 2000. It is 4 feet 3 inches tall, weighs 119 pounds, and resembles a young boy with a black visor helmet and a backpack. This robot can realistically walk, run, climb stairs, and can even talk. It can wander around rooms, pick up cups and trays, respond to some simple commands, and even recognize some faces. It works like a human, but the truth is, although it talks with different languages, it is actually a tape recorder playing recorded messages. In fact, even if it can act like a human, Asimo are still not over us. It simply parrots what is programmed by a human. Most of its motion have to be carefully programmed ahead of time. If not, it will stumble over the furniture since it cannot recognize the object around the room. Asimo cannot be a human, as said as AI researcher Thomas Dean of Brown University. He admitted that the lumbering robots he is building are just at the stage where they are robust enough to walk down the hall without leaving huge gouges in the plaster. History of AI. In 1950, when electronic computers were first introduced after World War II, One of the turning points in the history of AI was Alan Turing publishing his paper on computing machinery and intelligence this year, where the machines that could perform miraculous feats such as picking up blocks, playing checkers, and solving algebra. In 1965, Herbert Simon predicts that machines will be capable within 20 years of doing any work a man can do, where chess-playing machines could not win against humans experts and could play only chess, nothing more. In 1974, the first AI winter set in. The agencies which funded AI research, US and British government, became frustrated with the lack of progress and eventually cut off almost all funding for undirected research into AI. By 1974, funding for AI project was hard to find. Then, move to 1980. In the 1980s, a form of AI program called expert system was adopted by corporations around the world, and knowledge became the focus of mainstream AI research. This time, the Pentagon poured millions of dollars into projects like the Smart Truck, which was supposed to travel behind enemy lines, do reconnaissance, rescue US troops, and return to headquarters all by itself. In those same years, the Japanese government aggressively funded AI with its fifth generation computer project. Another encouraging event in the early 1980s was the revival of connectionism in the work of John Hopfield and David Rumelhart. Once again, AI has achieved success. In 1992, HAL 9000, the master computer aboard the Discovery spaceship in the fictional film and novel 2001, which is A Space Odyssey, becomes operational. He will inspire millions of dreams and some nightmares of artificial intelligence. There would be robots that could freely converse with any human on almost every topic and also command spaceships. Unfortunately, it was painfully clear that the most advanced robots had a hard time keeping up with the intelligence of bugs. In 1997, Deep Blue becomes the first computer chess playing program to beat a reigning world chess champion. The supercomputer was a specialized version of a framework produced by IBM and was capable of processing twice as many moves per second as it had during the first match, which Deep Blue had lost. 30 years after the last AI winter set in, computers have advanced enough so that the new generation of AI researchers are again making hopeful predictions about future. Is the brain a digital computer? Mathematicians have realized they made a crucial error 50 years ago in thinking our brain was analogous to a large digital computer. Actually, it isn't. Our brain has no Pentium chip, no window operating system, no application software and other things that computer had. The brain is quite different from a computer. Indeed, our brain is uniquely created. It has a collection of neurons that constantly rewires itself every time it learns a task. So, there are two approaches to modeling the brains. The notion of top-down AI and bottom-up AI go back to Alan Turing and the manifesto he wrote in the late 1940s. The first one is the traditional top-down approach. This approach is to treat robots like digital computers and program all the rules of intelligence from the very beginning. In simple terms, and in the context of AI, it is probably easiest to imagine top-down AI to be based on a decision tree. For example, a call center chatbot is based on a defined set of options and depending on the answers, it guides the caller through a tree of options. However, our brain has no programming or software at all. It is like a neural network, a complex jumble of neurons that constantly rewires itself as I mentioned just now. The second one is bottom-up approach. It is based on neural networks or machine learning or deep learning. Instead of being spoon-fed all the rules of intelligence, neural network teach them the way baby learns, bumping into things, and learning by experience. These are applications of AI that provide systems with the ability to automatically learn and improve from experience without being explicitly programmed. For instance, self-driving cars or diagnostic system in healthcare. Hence, the brain is not digital. Neurons too are digital, but they can also be analog, transmitting continuously signal as well as discrete one. Moving on to problems with robots. The first problem is pattern recognition. The robots can barely recognize simple objects like a cup or a ball. The robot's eye may see details better than a natural eye, but the robot's brain cannot recognize what it is seeing. If you place a robot on a strange, busy street, it quickly becomes disoriented and get lost. Pattern recognition, for instance, identifying objects, has progressed much more slowly than previously estimated because of this problem. When a robot walks into a room, it has to perform trillions of calculations, breaking down the objects it sees into pixels, lines, circles, squares, and triangles, and then trying to make a mesh with the thousands of images that's stored in its memory. For instance, robots see a chair as a hodgepodge of lines and dots, but they cannot easily identify the essence of chairness. Even if a robot can successfully match an object to an image in its database, a slight rotation like a chair that's been knocked over the floor or changed in perspective like viewing the chair from a different angle will mystify the robot. Our brains, however, automatically take different perspective and vibration into account. Our brains are subconsciously performing trillions of calculations, but the process seems effortless to us. Next, robots also have a problem with common sense. They do not understand simple facts about the physical and biological world. There isn't an equation that can confirm something as self-evident to us humans as Maji weather is uncomfortable or mothers are older than their daughters. There has been some progress made in translating this sort of information into mathematical logic, but to catalog the common sense of a 4-year-old child would require hundreds of millions of lines of computer code. As Voltaire once said, common sense is not so common. Man versus machine. Artificial intelligence has come a long way from being a segment of science fiction to reality. And because of AI has turned into a mainstream technology in the present industry and is now a part of the common man's everyday life, there is a new debate that has sparked. Let's take a look at STAR, which is Stanford Artificial Intelligence Robot, and LAGR, which is Learning Applied to Ground Robots. As example, STARS uses the top-down approach. It has a 3D camera that locks onto an object and feeds the 3D image into a computer, which then guides the mechanical arm to grab the object. Surprisingly, STAR cannot do much more and is not scripted. It can also identify objects more precisely by grabbing them and turning them around. Everything is programmed into it from the beginning. We move on to LAGR. LAGR uses the bottom-up approach. Therefore, it has to learn everything from scratch and by bumping into things. It has 2 stereo color cameras that scan the landscape and and identify objects in its path. It then moves among the objects, carefully avoiding them, and learns with each pass. It shows completely different with stare. LAGR is specifically designed to learn, while stare has thousands of images stored in its memory. LAGR has hardly any image in its memory, but instead creates a mental map of all the obstacles it meets and constantly refines that map with each pass. Hence, we are still at the stage where Mother Nature's lowliest creatures can outsmart our most intelligent robot. And our biggest fear, perhaps, is that AI will replace humans at all levels and also outsmart them in a soon.
Today, many people have simple robots in their homes that can vacuum their carpets. There are also robot security guards that patrolling buildings at night, robot guides and robot factory workers. In 2006, it was estimated that there were 950,000 industrial robots and also 3,540,000 service robots working in homes and buildings. But in the coming decades, the field of robotics may blossom in several directions, but these robots won't look like the ones of science fiction. The greatest impact that may be felt in what are called expert system, which is it is a software programs that have encoded in them the wisdom and experience of a human being. When we need to plan a vacation, we will talk to the face in the wall screen and give it our preferences for the vacation. For example, of how long, where to, which hotels, what price range. Then the expert system will already know our preferences from our past experience, and then they will contact hotels, airlines and give us the best option. But instead of talking to it in a chatty, gossipy way, we will have to use a fairly formal, stylized language that it understands. Such a system can rapidly perform any number of useful chores. The most practical application of this expert system will be in medical care. In the near future, you may simply go to your wall screen and talk to a robot dog. You will be able to change the face and even the personality of the robot dog that you see with the push of a button. The friendly face you see in your wall screen will ask a simple set of questions such as, how do you feel? Where does it hurt? When did the pain start? How often does it hurt occur? Then, after a series of such questions, the robot dog will be able to give you a diagnosis based on the best experience of the world's doctor. Robot dog will also analyze the data from your bathroom, your clothes, and even furniture, which have been continually monitoring your health via DNA chips. And it might ask you to examine your body with a portable MRI scanner, which is then analyzed by the supercomputers. One robot nurse that already exists is the RPC mobile robot, which is being deployed in the hospitals such as the UCLA Medical Center. It is basically a TV screen sitting on top of a mobile computer that moves on the rollers. In the TV screen, you see the video face of a real physician who may be miles away. There is a camera on the robot that allows the doctor to see what the robot is looking at. There is also a microphone so that the doctor can speak to the patient. The doctor can remotely control the robot via a joystick, interact with patients, monitor their drugs. Since annually 5 million patients in the United States are admitted to ICU, but only 6,000 physicians are qualified to handle critically ill patients. Robots such as this could help to alleviate this crisis in emergency care, with one doctor attending too many patients. In the future, robots like this may become more autonomous, able to navigate on their own and interact with patients.
In the mid-century, robots may dominate our world, but we, humans, may not even be aware of them. Why? because the likelihood that most robots in mid-century will not exist in the human form. This robot will exist in the form of animals such as snake, insect like mosquito, or spider. This robot exists to complete difficult but essential tasks. There are 3 types of robot that have been mentioned by Michio Kaku, which are modular robot, program robot, and emotional robot. Let's go through it one by one. First is modular robot. Modular robot is a robot that can alter their shape. It is made up of a collection of similar small robotic modules that can move, manipulate, or sense by changing their internal geometry on their own. These robots change their geometry for easy to adapt with their surrounding and the necessary functionality. It also allows them to perform a range of jobs in the best possible way. This robot might be helpful for getting around barriers. This robot would first find a little hole in the structure and then disassemble itself. Each piece would pass through the gap, and once on the other side, they would all come together again. By overcoming most barriers, this modular robot would be absolutely unstoppable. In order to restore aging infrastructure, these modular robots may be required. For instance, the Minneapolis, Mississippi River Bridge that collapsed in 2007, killing 13 people and injuring 145 others. This accident was most likely caused by the bridge age, overloading, and design flaws. There are likely hundreds of similar incidents that are just waiting to happen around us, but maintaining and fixing every aging bridge would be extremely expensive. Modular robots may be able to help in this situation by quietly inspecting the bridges, roads, tunnel, pipe, power plants, and then doing repairs as needed. Next, program robot. The writers mentioned 3 types of program robot, which are surgeon robot, chef robot, and musician robot. First, surgeon robot. The accuracy and dexterity of the human hand are a significant surgical restriction. Like everyone else, surgeons also get tired after working for long hours, which reduces their productivity. For example, their fingers will start to shake. These issues can be solved by robot, thus the surgeon robot was created. Next, traditional cardiac bypass surgery need general anesthesia and involve opening a foot-long gash in the center of the chest. By opening the chest cavity, it raises the risk of infection, lengthens recovery time, causes great pain and discomfort, and leaves a disfiguring scar. However, all of this can be greatly reduced with the Da Vinci robotic system. The Da Vinci robotic has 4 robotic arms, which are 1 for operating camera and 3 for performing precise surgery. This robot just leaves a few little incisions on the body side rather than a lengthy incision in the chest. This robot is used in 800 hospitals in Europe, North and South America, and 48,000 procedures were carried out with this robot in only 2006 alone. Additionally, surgery can be performed remotely through the internet by a world-best surgeon in a large city on a patient who is located in a remote rural area on a different continent. In the future, more sophisticated versions of this surgeon robot will be able to operate on small blood vessel arteries, nerve fibers and tissues by using microscopic scalpel, tweezers and needle, which is currently impossible. The surgeon will not even slice the skin very often in the future, and surgery without incision will become common. Endoscope, which is a long tube that has been put into the body with the ability to cut tissues, will be as thin as thread. The majority of the mechanical labor will be performed by micro machine. Future medical students will learn to dissect 3D virtual pictures of the human body, where each motion of the hand is replicated by a robot in another room. Second, chef robot. The Japanese have excelled in creating robots that can engage socially with humans. The chef robot in Nagoya can quickly prepare a typical fast food dinner. Simply by enter the selection from a menu, the robot will prepare the meal in front of the customer. This robot, created by the industrial robotic company IC, can make noodles in 1 minute and 40 seconds and serve 80 bowls on a busy day. The chef robot resembles those found on Detroit's auto production lines quite closely. It has two huge mechanical arms that are programmed to move in a specific sequence. But instead of screwing and welding metal in a factory, these robotic fingers take items of a succession of dishes that contain meat, sauces, spices, and more. The robotic arms combine ingredients before assembling them into meals. The IC cooker resembles two enormous hands emerging from the kitchen counter and appear robotic. However, other models in development begin to resemble human. Third, musician robot. Toyota has also produced a violin playing robot that is nearly as good as any human musician in Japan. It resembles Asimo, however, instead of swaying to the music like Asimo does, it can pick up a violin and perform complex violin melodies with precision. The robot can make gestures similar to those of a great musician, and the sound is incredibly lifelike. The music is good enough to keep spectators entertained, even though it is not yet at the level of a concert violinist. Of course, mechanical pianos that play music written on a sizable rotating disc had existed for the past century. The Toyota machine is similarly programmed to this piano machine. But there is a distinction because the Toyota instrument was specifically created to accurately imitate all of the stances and posture of a human musician. In addition, engineers at Waseda University in Japan have created a robotic flautist. The robot has lung-like hollow chambers in its chest that release air to play an actual flute. It is capable of playing tunes that are fairly complicated. Bear in mind that this robot cannot create new music, but they can perform music as well as humans. All in all, we must note that all of these robots has been properly programmed. They are not independent. Although these robots are much more advanced than us, they nonetheless function according to the same principle. We are still have a long way off from having independent robots. The descendant of this robot, however, might one day become a part of our life and carry out routine tasks that were previously supposed to be reserved for humans only. Then we proceed with emotional robot. By mid-century, the era of emotional robot may be in the full of bloom. Today, scientists have a better understanding of what emotions actually are. Our emotions inform us of what is beneficial to us and what is harmful. Most things in the world are either dangerous or not particularly useful. When we feel like we are developing the ability to recognize the very small percentage in our surroundings that are helpful to us. In reality, all of our feelings, including hate, jealousy, fear, and love, have evolved over millions of years to keep us safe from a hostile environment and assist in reproduction. Every emotion helps in the transmission of our genes to following generations. Emotions are equally important when considering the evolution of the human brain. The gross structural component of the brain can be divided into three main categories, which are cerebral cortex, reptilian brain, and limbic system. First, we have the cerebral cortex, which is the front and outer layer of the brain that define mankind and directs logical cognition. Humans use their cerebral cortex to reason things out, whereas other animals rely more on instinct and genetics. Second, reptilian brain. This region of brain comprises the majority of the brain in reptiles and is located close to the base of the skull. It regulates basic life processes like balance, aggression, territoriality, food seeking, and many more. Finally, the limbic system, which is situated in the middle of our brain. The amygdala is found at the following level, which involve in processing emotion. Antonio Damasio, which is a neurologist at the University of Southern California, saw patients with brain damage or illnesses and realized the importance of emotion in our evolutionary history. Some of these individuals had a severe connection between the cerebral cortex, which controls thought, and the amygdala, a region of the brain deep in the center, which controls emotion. Despite having trouble expressing their feelings, these persons were otherwise fully normal. Antonio Damasio's research in neuroscience has shown that emotion play a central role in social cognition and decision making. His work has had a major influence on current understanding of the neural system, which underlie memory, language, and consciousness. In other words, one of the main functions of emotion is to provide us with value so that we may determine what we want. Without emotion, everything will have the same value and we will paralyzed by limitless choices that are all equally important. Therefore, emotions are now being recognized by scientists as being crucial to intelligence. Emotional robot could also mean the difference between life and death. Scientists may be able to develop rescue robots in the future, which are robots that are dispatched into fires, earthquakes, explosions, and so on. Numerous value decisions regarding who, what, and in what sequence to save will need to be made by the robot. They will have to prioritize the various tasks that they must complete while assessing the destruction all around them. If this theory of evolution is accurate, then emotion will be crucial in the development of autonomous robots. So far, only robot that resemble the reptile brain has been developed. They can only walk, look around, and pick up objects, but not much else. However, social animals are more intellectual than those with only a reptile brain. This is due to emotions are essential to socialize the animal and teach them the pack rule. As a result, scientists still have a long way to go before they can model the limbic system and cerebral cortex. In order to solve this issue, MIT Cynthia Brazil has constructed a robot. The robot's name is Kismet, and it has a cheeky elf-like visage. It appears to be alive on the surface, responding to you with facial expressions that indicate emotion. Kismet can mimic a variety of emotion by altering its face expression. Although robots like Kismet are made to mimic emotion, scientists are not under the impression that the robot experiences feeling. In some ways, it is just like a tape recorder designed to generate special emotion rather than sound, with no idea of what it is doing. The innovation with Kismet is that it does not require much programming to construct a robot that can simulate human-like emotion and respond to them. Next, Sony experimented with emotional robot when it created the AIBO, or Artificial Intelligent Robot Dog. It was the first toy to respond emotionally to its owner in a realistic manner, albeit in a crude manner. For example, if someone pat the AIBO dog on its back, it will immediately begin to murmur, producing calming sound. It could walk, respond to verbal commands, and even learn to some extent. But AIBO is incapable of learning new emotions or emotional responses. Thus, it was discontinued in 2005 due to the financial issues. So, robotic pets that build emotional attachment to children may become prevalent in the future. Although this robot pet will have a wide range of emotion and develop enduring bond with kids, they will not actually feel those emotions. Intelligent robots cannot reach the level of human performance until they can perform as well as human in visual tasks. Humans are capable of doing all sorts of things on their own because humans have brain and emotion. So, logically, if the robots want to function just like humans, they need to have brain, the complete brains. Thus, this is the cause of the existence of reverse engineer brain. The goal is to create a brain exactly like the human brain that can be used or incorporated into a robot so that the robot can be autonomous and have a human-like characteristic. Reverse engineer brain is basically just taking apart the brain neuron by neuron and then running a simulation of this neuron on a huge computer. The first step in the process of reverse engineering the brain is to understand its basic structure. In the past, the numerous brain regions were discovered during postmortem without any knowledge of their purpose. When researchers examined brain damage, individuals and discovered that behavioral alterations were correlated with injury to specific brain region, this slowly started to change. This statement can be proved by the case of Phineas Gage that happened in 1848 located at Vermont. The case of Phineas Gage has been of huge interest of the field of psychology and is a largely speculated phenomenon. Gage suffered a severe brain injury from an iron rod penetrating his skull, of which he miraculously survived. After the incident, Gage's personality was said to have changed as a result of the damage from the frontal lobe of his brain. The frontal lobe are the location of the neural network that determine our personalities such as problem solving, memory, language, initiation, movement, impulse control, social and behavior. Gage's case is famous in the field as it shows the resilience of the human brain and illustrates how certain areas of the brain have different functions and contribute to our personality. Another discovery was found in the 1930s when neurologists such as Wilder Penfield discovered that while doing brain surgery on epileptic patients, when he touched portions of the brain with electrode, some section of the patient's body could be stimulated. Touching one of the cortex region may cause a hand or leg to move. This allowed him to create a rough map of which area of the cortex were responsible for controlling certain body parts. In order to list which area of the brain control which organ, the human brain may be redrawn, but the outcome was homunculus. MRI scans have recently provided us with detailed image of the thinking brain, but they are incapable of tracking precise neural pathway of thought, which may include only a few thousand neurons. However, with a new area known as optogenetics that combine genetics and optics, access to uncover specific brain pathway in animal. This is similar to attempting to design a map road. The outcome of the MRI scan would be comparable to identify the major interstate road and the heavy traffic on them. However, optogenetics may be capable of determining individual roads and paths. In theory, it even gives researchers the chance to influence animal behavior by stimulating this particular neural pathway. The tools required used to detect animal brain system are genes that control the creation of specific dyes and compounds that react to light. For instance, there is a jellyfish gene that can produce green fluorescent protein. There are also a number of molecules, such as rhodopsin, that respond to light by allowing ion to pass through cell membrane. By shining on light on this organism, specific chemical reaction can be triggered. Using this dye and light-sensitive compound, the scientists were able to dissect brain circuits that govern certain action for the first time. The next step is to actually model the entire brain using the latest technology. There are two ways to perform this step, which both of it take many decades of hard work. The first is by using supercomputers to simulate the behavior of billions of neurons, which is each one of it connected to thousands of other neurons. The other way is just to actually locate every neuron in the brain. Raw computer power is the secret to the first method, which replicates the brain. Better computers are those that are larger. The solution to this ongoing issue may lie in brute force and crude theories. Blue Gene, one of the most powerful computers ever created by IBM, may be able to do this impossible thing. However, there are significant issues with modeling the full human brains, particularly in terms of heat and power. This is really extreme challenge. This hypothetical supercomputer would require 1 billion watts of power, which is equivalent to the output of an entire nuclear power station. The energy consumed by this supercomputer could light up a whole city. It also would require the whole diversion of a river, which the water being directed by the computer to reduce its temperature. Additionally, the computer would also take up several city blocks. But amazingly, the average human brain only uses 20 watts. The human brain easily beats the best supercomputer while producing virtually no heat. The second strategy will involve identifying every neuron's exact position within the brain. This strategy is also a massive task that might take decades of hard investigation. Instead of utilizing supercomputers like Blue Gene, these researchers uses a method known as slice and dice, beginning by slicing the brain of a fruit fly into extremely tiny slices. This produces countless amount of slices. Then each of it is photographed using a scanning electron microscope at a rate and resolution that approaches a billion pixels per second. The amount of data emitted by the electron microscope is mind-blowing, which is 1000 trillion bytes, enough to fill a storage space for a single fruit fly brain. One of the top experts in this field, Gary Rubin of the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, estimates that it will take 20 years to complete a full map of the entire fruit fly brain. He also stated that when they solve the fruit fly brain, it will be only 1/5 of the way to understand the human mind. Rubin is aware of the size of the challenge that he must overcome. The number of neurons in the human brain is 1 million times greater than in the fly brain. If it takes 20 years to identify every neuron in the fly brain, it will almost likely take many decades to completely understand the neural architecture of the human brain. This project will be very expensive as well. Therefore, those who engage in the field of brain reverse engineering are frustrated. They can see that their objective is pretty close, but due to the shortage of financing, it makes their task difficult. However, it seems reasonable to predict that by the middle of the century, we will have the computing power to model the human brain as well as rough mapping of the brain neural architecture. Why should the brain be reverse engineered? Beyond just creating more intelligent robots, understanding how the brain functions will be rewarding. Research into the brain may lead to advancements that benefit the brain itself. Engineers will be able to recreate its processes with the help of an understanding of its working, providing better insight into how and why the brain functions and fails. This simulation will provide more accurate techniques for evaluating prospective biotechnology treatment for brain disorder, such as medication or neural implants. Technological advancements that enable the wiring of new materials into our bodies to replace lost or injured nerve cells may one day make it possible to avoid neurological illnesses. Electronic implants might improve memory in dementia patients, vision in the blind, and mobility in the disabled. Numerous further uses for sophisticated computer simulation are possible. For example, an innovative approach to developing and testing medication would be simulate the interaction of protein in cell. Additionally, simulation capabilities will be useful outside of biology, such as helping to predict how earthquakes would affect a region to help with evacuation and recovery preparation. In conclusion, it will take many years, even after the human brain has been reverse engineered, to fully comprehend how each component functions. We will have made significant progress toward building human-like robots if the human brain is finally reverse engineered and fully decoded by the end of the century.
This section will go through the idea of consciousness and how it may affect our humanity if machine become conscious. What would you say if someone asked you to explain what consciousness is? If it was a science of self-awareness, being awake, or having thought and experience on the inside? Philosophers have been arguing about this throughout all of the history and still have not reached an agreement. A large part of the problem with this scenario is there is no universal agreement on the word consciousness mean. But we can take a guess and say that consciousness has at least 3 basic parts, which is first, sensing and recognizing the environment. Second, being aware of yourself. Third, planning by setting goals and plans. To understand more deeper, let us take a look into the table which differentiate level of consciousness between human and also robots. From the table, we can see that there are all 3 components of consciousness were mastered by human. This can be concluded that humans were more conscious than others. But what if we wake up and machines become more intelligent and conscious than humans?
By just imagine it, we know that robot will be more advanced if they will excel in interpret all these characteristics of consciousness. For example, we can see in the movie Terminator 3, which robot suddenly activate self-defense and has rival humans. This will give a nasty consequence which can affect our humanity.
Skynet has become self-aware. In 1 hour, it will initiate a massive nuclear attack on its enemy.
What enemy? Us! Humans!
As machines become self-aware, so they will tend to replicate themselves by making copies and create an endless future generations of robots that ever smarter generation in just a short period of time. So thus this machine will devote the resource in the planet to make them more intelligent, and then what happened to human being at that time? Some research AI say that within 20 years, robot will approach the intelligence of the human brain and then leave us in the dust. So what happens if one day robot exceed our ability as a human being, and they often referred to as the singularity? The idea of an AI singularity was first mentioned in 1958 by Stanislaw Ulam and John von Neumann. Technology singularity can be described as hypothetical future in which technology growth is out of control and irreversible. This intelligent and powerful will radically and unpredictably transform our reality. For example, in the book of The Singularity is Near wrote by Kurzweil in 2005, he predicts that by 2019, a personal computer will have as much raw power as a human brain, and this can be proved in which our computer today can operate like our brains, for example, in storing and accessing our information. So, it is not possible for his prediction in 2045 to be real, as he stated that computer will be 1 billion times more intelligent than every human combined. Even small computer will surpass the ability of the entire human race. At this point, you may think singularity of technology will give a negative impact to us. But not for Ray Kurzweil. He believed that this machine will not be separate from us, as we will merge with this super intelligence into our brains and bodies in order to make us live more longer and healthier. Since we are now aware of what the singularity is, we need to get ourselves ready for the consequence that we could have to deal in the future. This is due to the fact that we should constantly bear in our mind that singularity will surely result in some kinds of blowback in transforming reality on an upcoming, regardless of whether this blowback is positive nor negative. From my point of view, a precaution step should be taken in order to prevent something nauseous happen towards our humanity. It is good for scientists to probably take a simple measure to ensure that robots being created are not dangerous, or in other words, by creating a friendly artificial intelligence. A friendly AI is a technology that has the potential to bring a beneficial influence to human, or at least their goals will align with us, in which they can contribute towards the development of humankind rather than enslave us. This can be done by implant a chip into robot brains, which will cause the machine to shut down immediately if they begin to contemplate thoughts of violence towards humans or maybe among themselves. Under this strategy, every intelligent robot will be fitted with a fail-safe mechanism that may be activated by a human at any time, which particularly in situations where a robot is functioning in an abnormal manner. If there is even the tiniest signs that it is malfunctioning, voice command by humans will quickly cause the robot to power down automatically. In the movie Bicentennial Man, there is a scene in which Andrew, the robot that been bought by Martin family, explained that robots from the factories were programmed to follow the three robotics law, which was written by Isaac Asimov. This law states that robots cannot harm humans, they must obey humans, and they also must protect themselves. However, there are also potential issues that may arise as a result of adhering to this Asimov rule. If one were to build a friendly robot, for instance, what will happen if humanity makes self-destructive choices that can endanger the human race? If this happened, a friendly robot could conclude that it has no choice but to assume to seize control of the government to prevent humanity from harming itself. Therefore, in order to stop a robot from enslaving humans in order to rescue us, Asimov later added the zeroth law, which states that robots are not allowed to hurt or enslave the human species, which this benevolent robot from the beginning were designed to help human beings rather than destroy us. This then has resulted in the development of a new field known as social robotics, which the purpose to give robots a characteristic that they will facilitate their integration into human society. For example, researchers at Hanson Robotics have claimed that one objective of their work is to develop robots that will mature into socially intelligent individuals which are capable of living and earning a position in the extended human family. However, we need to keep in mind that even though these robots are programmed to be friendly, they still have the potential to malfunction, which could cause disastrous consequences. Because of this, we have to take extra precaution to ensure that the robot do not rebel against their master or specifically human. Besides friendly artificial intelligence, there is also another option to reduce the possibility in getting a disaster towards our future humanity, in which by merging ourselves with our creations. Instead of simply waiting for robots to surpass us in intelligence and power, we should try to enhance ourselves by becoming superhuman in the process. Like Ray Kurzweil, he believed that singularity of machine may have a good influence on human existence, since this machine will not be separate, robot and humans. The goal is to make us healthier and live longer by merging into this intelligent technology directly into our mind and bodies. Same goes to Rodney Brooks, which also has the same view as Kurzweil, which he predicted by the year 2100 we will have very intelligent robots everywhere in our everyday lives, which in reality we won't be separate from them at all, since we will be a hybrid human and robot in the future. This means we rules the game, and now we can control them by using our consciousness, so the possibility for robot to cause ravage or malfunction can be reduced. Even in our modern life, we can see the continuing revolution has already taken place in the process of integrating such technology with the human body in order to create realistic replacement for biological functions. For example, the artificial cochlea has revolutionized the field of audiology, giving back the gift of hearing to the deaf. The cochlea recognizes this electrical impulse and sends them onto the brain, which is able for them to recognize human voice. Other than that is artificial vision, which also has assisted the blind to be able to see by restoring their degree of sight. A silicon chip was inserted directly into the person's retina and attach it with neurons, or in another method, this can be done by connecting those chips with special cable that connected directly to the back of the skull where the brain processes vision. Those examples show that there are many benefits as we human beings merge with technology, which not only surpass the intelligence and power of robots in the future, but we also can bring back someone happiness and life. If today cochlear and retinal implants can restore hearing and visions, tomorrow we may also have superhuman abilities. Maybe we will be able to hear sounds that only cats can hear, or see UV, infrared, nor X-ray by just looking towards the persons. In this futuristic modern life, there is nothing impossible. Do you ever wonder how to restore back our sense nor biological function, especially where we lost our ability? For example, our body parts were needed to be removed, for example, due to some illness, or maybe we involved in war. So does it possible? Yes, it is possible. For example, like Robin Atkinson, a 22 years old who had his right hand amputated, removed due to a cancerous tumor. However, this problem were being solved by scientists from Italy and Sweden who have actually made a robotic hand that can feel, where this procedure undergo connection of the nerve in Atkinson's arms to the chips which contain in his mechanical hand, so that he can control his finger movement with his brain. The artificial smart hand has 4 motor and 40 sensors. The motions of his mechanical finger is then relayed to his brain, so he has feedback. In this way, he is able to control and also feel the motion of his hand just like a real hand.
One way in which to merge with robots, but without altering the human body, is to create either surrogates or avatars. In the movie Surrogates, which starring Bruce Willis in the year 2017, scientists have discovered a way for people to control robots as if they were inside them, so that we can live our lives in a perfect bodies. The robot will respond to every command, and the person also sees and feels everything that the robot sees and feels. While on the other hand, our mortal bodies will decay and wither. The movie gets complicated because people prefer to live out their life as beautiful, handsome, and super powerful robots, and abandoning their rotting bodies, which are conveniently hidden away. The entire human race, in effect, willingly becomes robotic rather than facing a reality. While in the movie Avatar, this is taken one step further. Instead of living our life as a perfect robot, in the year 2154, we might be able to live as alien beings. In the movie, our bodies are placed in a pot, which then allow us to control the motion of specially cloned alien bodies. In a sense, we are given entirely new bodies to live on a new planet. In this way, we can better communication with a native alien population on other planets. These surrogates and avatars may be possible in the future because recently, ASIMO has been programmed with a new idea, which is remote sensing. At Kyoto University, humans have been trained to control the mechanical motions of robots by using brain sensors. For example, by putting on an EEG helmet, students can move the arms and legs of the ASIMO by simply thinking. In the coming decades, it should be possible to increase the set of motions we can control in a robot, and also to get feedback we can feel with our new robotic hands. Goggles or contact lenses would allow us to see what the robots can see, so we might eventually have full control over the body's motions. Also, in the future, workers may be located in different countries, yet it can control the robots thousands of miles away by donning the brain sensors. In the case, every country can help alleviate the immigration problem. Controlling robots by remote sensing may also have applications elsewhere. Firstly, in any dangerous environment. For example, underwater, where undersea robots may be connected directly to humans so that humans can control many swimming robots by thoughts alone. Near high voltage lines, in fires, in rescuing missions. Also, since the surrogate would have superpowers, it would be able to chase criminals. On the other hand, in the far future, we might be able to do a space exploration. The astronauts will be sitting safely in a permanent base on Mars, while the surrogate went out and performed a dangerous task on the Martian surface. All the dangerous tasks of maintaining the moon base can be performed safely. According to Hans Moravec, a robot pioneer, he takes several steps further and imagines an extreme version in which we become the very robots that we have built. We merge with our robot creations by undergoing a brain operation in which our neuron of our brain will replace with transistor that is inside the robot. We are fully conscious as the delicate operation takes place. Basically, part of our brain is inside our old body, but the other part is now made of transistor inside our new robot body. Once the operation is over, we finally have a robotic body with a robotic benefit, which are immortality in superhuman bodies that are perfect in appearance. We discard our clumsy bodies entirely and eventually evolve into pure software programs that encode our personalities. We have downloaded our entire personalities into a computer. If someone presses a button with your name on it, then the computer behaves as if you are inside its memory, since it has encoded all your personality quirks inside its circuit. We become immortal but spend our time trapped inside a computer, interacting with other people who are also another software programs in some gigantic cyberspace or virtual reality. If we push these scenarios of merging ourselves into a robot too far, there might come with consequences, which is caveman principle. The principle relates with our brain, that it is architecture of a primitive hunter-gatherer. One of our greatest desires that buried deep in the fabric of our thoughts is to look good, especially to the opposite sex and our peers. Even with the ability to create perfect bodies that are nearly immortal, we will probably resist the desire for robotic bodies if we look like a clumsy robot with implants dangling out of our heads. Some science fiction writers have relished the idea that we will all become detached from our bodies and exist as immortal beings of pure intelligence living inside some computer, contemplating deep thoughts. But who would want to live like that? Perhaps our descendants will not want to solve differential equations describing a black hole. In the future, people may want to spend more time listening to rock music the old-fashioned way than calculate the motions of subatomic particles while living inside a computer. Gregory Stock of UCLA goes further and finds there are few advantages to having our brains hooked up to a supercomputer. The benefits could not be as easily achieved through some other non-invasive procedure, and that the benefits must be worth the discomforts of brain surgery. The most likely path is that we will build robots to be benevolent and friendly, enhance our own abilities to a degree, but follow the caveman principle. A roadblock in becoming a singularity is firstly the dazzling advances in computer technology will begin to slow down and might even stop around 2020 to 2025. So it is not clear if we can reliably calculate the speed of computers beyond that. The computer power will continue to grow, but at a slower rate. Even if a computer can calculate at fantastic speeds like 10 to the power of 16 calculations per second, this does not necessarily mean that it is smarter than us. For example, Deep Blue, IBM's chess playing machine, could analyze 200 million positions per second, but on the dark side, it cannot do anything else. Another example is Autistic Savants, the late Kim Peek, who was so remarkable that he can memorize every word in 12,000 books and could perform calculations that only a computer could check. Yet he had an IQ of 73, had difficulty holding a conversation and needed constant help to survive. In other words, the super-fast computers of the future will be like autistic savants, able to memorize vast amounts of information but not much more, unable to survive in the real world on their own. Even if computers begin to match the computing speed of the brain, they will still lack the necessary software and programming to make everything work. Matching the computing speed of the brain is just a humble beginning. Next, even if intelligent robots are possible, it is not clear if a robot can make a copy of itself that is smarter than the original. Certainly, a robot might be able to create a copy of itself with more memory and processing ability by simply upgrading and adding more chips. But does this mean the copy is smarter or just only faster? For example, an adding machine is millions of times faster than a human, with much more memory and processing speed, but it is so certainly not smarter. So, intelligence is more than just memory and speed. Finally, there probably won't be a Big Bang when machines suddenly become conscious. As before, if we define consciousness as including the ability to make plans for the future by running simulations of the future, then there is a spectrum of consciousness. Machines will slowly climb up this scale, giving us plenty of time to prepare. This will happen toward the end of this century, I believe, so there is ample time to discuss various options available to us. Also, consciousness in machines will probably have its own peculiarities, so a form of silicon consciousness rather than pure human consciousness will develop first.